a unique gathering to demystify human violence in all its forms, the social systems from which it emanates, and to explore new forms of action.
Violence is and will always be necessary to tear away the shreds of myth and absurdity that we've been encased in since we were born. What are you doing? You haven't done a goddamn thing to stop white violence, have you? Have you? Have you?
Don't escalate the hostility. Don't escalate the anger. Control your mind. Watch what you're doing. Be aware, totally.
The Congress went on for 2 weeks. As speakers, it gathered together spokesmen representing various mainstreams of violence and change in our society.
The peculiar character of modern domination is the following, and this applies both in Harlem and in underdeveloped countries, and it applies with regard to all of the big powers, is that they want these people to shut up. See, these people don't belong in this lovely, high-technological, interesting system. They are unnecessary. We don't need them, really. We don't need their labor. Finally, we don't need their raw materials. But unfortunately, they are people who, when they starve, get rambunctious. See, and why don't they shut up? See, why do they exist?
It is a capitalist society with a high concentration of economic and political power, with an enlarging sector of automation and coordination of production, distribution, and communication, with private ownership in the means of production, which, however, depends increasingly on ever more active and wide intervention by the government. And it is a society growing under conditions of accelerating waste, plant obsolescence and destruction, while the substratum of the population continues to live in poverty and misery.
Yeah, I was arrested before I came here for inciting a riot because I tried to kill a cop.
Yeah, but did you have a rifle?
I always got my stuff with me.
I don't mind you advocating violence if you take the risk. The only risk you have is of becoming a martyr. Why do you think
I asked you, how did you stop it? Not what you advocated. Yes, have you stopped it? That's the question. What have you done to stop it?
What have you stopped?
Oh, you don't want to stop white violence, do you? You don't want to stop it, do you? Why don't you stop it? Because it's my survival I'm fighting for, white boy. That's what I'm fighting for. Have you been fighting for it? Have you stopped any of it? You are the descendants of the violent society. Have you stopped it? Have you stopped it? Have you stopped it? I think the fact remains that neither the white boys nor Stokely Carmichael nor the Black Power have stopped the violence which continues today both in this hall and in Vietnam. The reason it is going to be stopped is because when a white man comes with a gun, he's going to know the same thing can happen to him that he's going to do to the black man. He can die just like anybody else. That is the only way you're going to stop it. That is the only way you will stop it. And if we can't stop it that way, I will say, like your Edmonton Prime Minister Winston Churchill said, which he stole a poem from a black man, if we must die, we will nobly die fighting back.
But that, again, is not the whole story. There is in the hippies, and especially in such tendencies of the hippies as the diggers and the provosts, there is an inherent political element, and perhaps in the United States even larger than here. It is the appearance, indeed, of new instinctual needs and values. This experience is there. Also there is a new sensibility against efficient and insane reasonableness.
And then beginning to move in on authority with those weapons which have been called flower power. Flower power being euphemistic for simple, calm, tranquil equilibrium, non-violent as far as possible, as far as the self can be controlled so that it can relate to other selves in disguise, including the police.
With all of your flowers, with all of your marches, with all of your love, have you altered it?
It isn't love that's being sought here. It's not love that's being offered. What's being offered, in a sense, is, or proposed, it's awareness of what your own feelings are and all the movements of your own mind.
All right, I'd like to introduce tonight's speakers to you. On my left, Ronald Lane, well-known psychoanalyst and writer. On my right, Stokely Carmichael, leader of Black Power, ex-chairman of SNCC. Next, Stokely is Allen Ginsberg, poet, who will open the meeting. On the extreme right is Emmett Grogan, from a free autonomous group in San Francisco called the Diggers. I leave you to their mercy.
Propositions are difficult. I don't have a completed proposition. I've heard some. The best experience I have had has been with the younger people in America and some few of my own generation who have had to confront the mass hallucination or style of consciousness or mode of consciousness into which we were born, and had some kind of mental breakthrough which clarified not only the nature of our own identity, which was also swept under by the mechanical society, but also the nature of others' identities as being the same as our own, that we are all one, and also the nature of the entire universe, perhaps, as what is very perplexingly a total illusion or maya. That is not necessarily to preclude our taking detached action within the situation. The most detached action that I have seen taken within the situation is the use of LSD by the younger people for the purpose of demystifying their own consciousness and arriving at some sort of common meat universe where they are sitting with flowers, ourselves, and Mr. Carmichael, and thus being able to begin to relate as self to common self. Where this leads in terms of practical action, we have very small community groups in San Francisco, in New York, and in New York, beginning to leave the money wheel and also beginning to leave the hallucination wheel of the media, beginning to form small cooperatives, tribal units, societies of their own, beginning to share money or do without money, beginning to put on mass entertainment in the park to raise the general awareness, not love power, but awareness power of their contemporaries, and then beginning to move in on authority with those weapons which have been called flower power. Flower power being euphemistic for a simple, calm, tranquil equilibrium, non-violent, as far as possible, as far as the self can be controlled so that it can relate to other selves in disguise, including the police. Carmichael, earlier in the week, made a proposition which I thought was possible, though I don't think he thought it was possible, that if the hippies in America were able to confront the police with flowers in Newark, then he would be concerned with that as a political tactic. I think that, for my own inspiration, for my own desire, is the one area where I do feel desire for practical action. The question was, if I were living in a situation where I had not enough to eat and not enough clothes and presumably were in jail, maybe, or I get the mercy of white power, would I be able to write my poetry? And I say, I have no idea, was my answer. The reason the hippies have taken on the beads, appurtenances, music of shamanistic groups, of ecstatic trance state types, is because they're beginning to explore for the first time the universe of consciousness of other cultures beside their own.
Mr. Ginsburg, I don't know much about the hippie movement, but I would like to beg to differ with you. I think the reason most of the hippies do that is because they're confused little kids who've run away from home and will return to their culture within a year or two.
There's no culture to return to.
Before I can find my individual self, I must find my group culture, obviously.
But we don't have a viable group culture, so we're in the same boat in that sense.
Not for me. I'm going to fight for me, in a broader sense, for other people.
We are surrounded by violence. The violence is falling on him, on the blacks. It's also, however, falling on all of us, in the sense that it has been for a long time falling on the whites also, in America, also in Russia.
That's things like this, going out in the street with masks, changing the way one dresses, changing the way one walks, challenging minute rules of etiquette, of conduct in all respects, in public.